Good afternoon and welcome to today's press conference featuring Colorado Governor Jared Polis and Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association Chief Executive Officer Dwayne Hiley. My name is Lee Bowie with Tri-State and I'll moderate today's session. Today's press conference will begin with comments from Dwayne Hiley, followed by Governor Polis. Mr. Hiley will then make additional comments and then we will have a question and answer session for media participants. For media to ask a question, you may raise your hand using the online dashboard. Following the announcement, you can reach out to Mark Stutz, 303-501-3526, or to me, Lee Bowie, at 720-670-6696. With that, I'd like to introduce Dwayne Hiley, CEO of Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association. Dwayne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lee. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today in these times of COVID. We'd much rather be face-to-face, but we know it's important that we be separate. So I want to thank the governor for joining us today and being part of this with us. Today we're sharing some pretty exciting news about Tri-State's energy transition. Tri-State is a member-owned and member-governed, member-driven organization. You may remember about a year ago, our board of directors, which is represented by a member from every one of the systems we serve, came together and gave us a pretty ambitious goal to reduce emissions, increase renewable energy, increase member flexibility for self-supply, self-generation, all while reducing rates and preserving reliability. So the governor, you joined us almost a year ago to make our first announcement about our responsible energy plan. Since that time, we have ended operations of coal in New Mexico at the Escalante plant, so that is now closed. We've submitted plans to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment supporting the regional haze rule. Those plans call for the closure of the Craig units, with Craig Unit 2 closing in 2028, Craig Unit 3 closing in 2029. We've finalized our flexibility for member self-supply, giving members greater options up to 50% self-supply. We began the construction of the first of 1,000 megawatts of additional renewable energy projects, which will double the amount of renewable energy that Tri-State has and take us to 50% renewable energy to serve all our members by the year 2024. And now the most recent goal that our board gave us was to announce an 8% rate decrease over the next 3 years. So we'll be able to do all this while preserving reliability and lowering costs, lowering rates to members. And we're gonna do this in a transparent, equitable, enforceable, and verifiable way. So really looking forward to working with the stakeholders to do that as we file our energy resource plan with the Colorado PUC. So that plan is due December 1st. In that plan, you'll see a new statement on the part of Tri-State. We want to do our part to support Colorado's clean energy transition. And so in order to do that, we're going to be filing our preferred scenario with the Colorado PUC, stating we will make an 80% reduction in carbon emissions from our 2005 baseline by 2030. So that's a very significant move for Tri-State, and it will mean the end of all coal operations in Colorado and New Mexico. And we really appreciate the state's partnership with us as we make this transition to help us ensure that it's going to remain reliable and affordable as we increase responsible energy for all our members in all 4 states we serve: Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. And so I'm really grateful for the partnership here with Colorado Governor Jared Polis. Governor, we first met, I think, April of 2019, as Tri-State was just beginning the vision of this energy transition. I'm really grateful for your support, for your encouragement, and for the resources that you've put at our disposal to help us make that transition. So you were there and your staff has been there with us every step of the way. And it's just been an incredible help for us to help make this transition more quickly. So Governor Polis, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. This is such an exciting day for Tri-State customers who will be benefiting from a green energy dividend, saving 8% wholesale by 2023 for the climate, 80% reduction in emissions by 2030. We are so excited on behalf of the state of Colorado for the progress that's been made and will be made. From day one, my administration has focused on a transition to renewables, our goal of 100% renewable energy by 2040, motivated by opportunity to grow jobs and economic opportunity, reduce rates for customers. I'm just so excited that the green energy dividend will lead to an 8% reduction in your wholesale rates over the next couple of years. And of course, doing our part on climate and also to reduce air pollution. Today's announcement is the latest on-the-ground example of the broad benefits of this movement towards renewable energy. And I just want to thank Dwayne, the entire team at Tri-State, the member co-ops who've been partners every step of the way. As Dwayne said, it was only this last January when we gathered to announce Tri-State's transformative responsible energy plan that set ambitious emission reduction goals and set a commitment to build a gigawatt of low-cost renewable energy by 2024. And today, Tri-State and its co-op members are announcing they're going to do quite a bit more than was even announced in January. Reduce emissions associated with the wholesale electricity sales in Colorado by 80% by 2030 compared to 2005 levels. That's on top of Tri-State's intention to achieve a 90% reduction in carbon emissions from Colorado generation by 2030, and also includes working with member co-ops on greater community and distributed generation, which creates jobs here in Colorado. And it's just so exciting, the progress that's being made at the member co-op level and Tri-State level on all of these priorities. You know, Dwayne has spoken about the green energy dividend, and I think it's really exciting to see that tangibly and what it means here, a commitment to reduce member wholesale rates by 8% by 2023 due to the low cost of renewable energy, which continues to fall rapidly. Look, the bottom line here is that as Tri-State moves forward with resource planning approval at the Public Utilities Commission, they plan to bring forward a really exciting and groundbreaking proposal that has the potential to ensure an increasingly reliable, affordable, and sustainable supply of energy well into the future, strong movement towards our administration's goals of 100% renewable energy by 2040. Today's announcement isn't just exciting for Tri-State's member co-ops across the state, but also for our collective efforts to confront the existential threat of climate change. Look, this year in Colorado, we've seen firsthand the impact of a changing climate. A statewide drought, the 3 largest wildfires in the history of our state, devastating communities, driving thousands of Coloradans from their homes, showing that climate refugees don't just live in coastal communities affected by hurricanes, but also right here in the middle of the country. An extreme statewide drought laid the foundation for these fires. They've made conditions a lot more challenging for our climate-dependent industries like farming and ranching. And Colorado is a real model where it comes to taking climate action. And we need that action at the national and international level. But the work towards a greener grid, beneficial electrification, more electric vehicles and of the fleet, more fuel efficiency is very promising work towards making progress towards the goals in the greenhouse gas pollution roadmap. The roadmap provides not only a sense of where our emissions are headed, but also the key actions that we need to take to move forward. And the transition to low-cost renewable energy is a key driver of the success, which is why we've established this clear direction that all electric utilities should achieve an 80% pollution reduction by 2030. And Tri-State today is showing with that green dividend that will save customers 8%. Over the last 2 years, we've worked collaboratively with utilities that operate over 95% of the fossil fuel-based generation in Colorado to meet these deep emission reductions while maintaining reliability, saving consumers money. Since 2018, Tri-State, the Colorado Springs Municipal Utility, Platte River Power Authority have committed to reducing over 2,000 megawatts of fossil fuel burning power ahead of schedule and bringing new renewable energy, creating good new jobs in the renewable energy economy online sooner. And this also, of course, comes after the commitment by Xcel that has decided to shutter Comanche 1 and 2 before 2026 and Hayden by 2030. Xcel will submit their required clean energy plan to the PUC next March that shows the 80% in there. Our success with renewable energy adoption not only reduces pollution in the top emitting sector, but also positions Colorado to really benefit from leading the way in extending the clean, cheap electricity across the economy through electrification of buildings and transportation that still largely rely on fossil fuels. To be clear, today's timeline does not in any way impact Tri-State's timeline for closing coal plants in Colorado. And we are, of course, maintain our focus on a just transition from the economy. But this will reduce imports to our state of fossil fuels, create good green jobs. The discussion with the co-ops around distributed and community scale generation is a very important one for local jobs and to meet these aggressive goals and distribute the central capital as well. Turning this plan into reality that works for everyone will require the continued commitment and expertise of diverse voices across our state. And I, for one, on behalf of Colorado, look forward to this continued partnership and collaboration, working towards innovation and towards collaborative solutions that are not only good for the climate and not only necessary for the climate, but also improve our quality of life, our air quality, our economy, jobs, and well-being of residents and small businesses in the state of Colorado. Thank you, Tri-State. Thank you, Dwayne. We are just so excited to hear this wonderful news for the customers you have across your electric co-ops and members. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Governor. We really, really appreciate your support. And as I said, you and your staff have been instrumental in helping us make this transition. So when now we look ahead and say, what's next? And for Tri-State, we've talked about this before. The next step for us is to help assist in the development of a regional transmission organization in the West. This is what's going to be needed as we go beyond that 50% renewables in 2024 and seek 80% by 2030, 80% reductions by 2030, and then 100% goal by 2040. In order to get there, we know we have to coordinate regionally, not just within our own state, not just within our own utilities boundaries. And so we want to do everything we can to accelerate this transition to a regional grid operation. This is going to take years, but we want to start now. And so today we're announcing with 4 other large regional utilities that we will begin work with the Southwest Power Pool to evaluate the expansion of their RTO into the West. So those 4 utilities, I won't read them so I don't get them wrong. One is Basin Electric Power Cooperative. So that's a North Dakota-based cooperative serving members in Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Nice footprint there. Deseret Power Cooperative, a regional generation and transmission cooperative serving members in 5 states, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, and Wyoming. The Municipal Energy Agency of Nebraska, which is a nonprofit wholesale electric supply organization serving communities in 4 states, Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, and Wyoming. And the Western Area Power Administration, which markets and transmits power from federal generation facilities in 15 central and western states. So its evaluation will also consider participation of its Upper Great Plains West and Rocky Mountains regions. Collectively, we represent a very large footprint in the West, and we're going to move forward with the beginning and evaluation with the Southwest Power Pool of the benefits of moving their RTO westward. A new kind of westward expansion into a new frontier, just like we've always seen in the West, right? Now, this doesn't eliminate any of our other options, and we know we also have other options to consider for RTOs, but we want to advance the cause as quickly as possible, because in order to get to these green energy goals, we are going to have to work together to improve transmission access for everyone and to regionally plan for generation across a broader region. It's not going to be easy, but as we reach for that goal of 100% renewables by 2040, this is something we have to do together. So really looking forward to this new announcement with Southwest Power Pool and working with them. And finally, Governor, oh, sorry, you were gonna make a comment there?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna comment briefly on that. You know, enhanced electricity markets and interstate electricity markets will lead to additional efficiency, reliability, also more cost savings, and really are important that we support the integration of high levels of renewable energy across a broader geographic region. And we, of course, look forward to working with Tri-State and all the electric utilities to find the best ways to maximize these benefits for all Coloradans by participating in a broader electricity market.
Oh, that's so well said. You know, Colorado sits in a wonderful position in the United States. At the intersection of the eastern and western grids, we have the ability to arbitrage between the eastern and western energy markets. And moving Colorado's, been blessed with a lot of renewable resources to move those east when they can go that way. That would be a benefit. Finally, Governor, you mentioned the first responders and the wildfires, and this has been heavy on our hearts this year as we watched the devastating wildfires. We know that the first responders have been out there working. We've lost a lot of homes. A lot of families are without homes now. Our own DNR director, Dan Gibbs, who does a fantastic job as a DNR director, is one of those firefighters. We want to recognize his efforts. But Tri-State is also wanted to mention today, we're donating $50,000 to the support for those folks impacted by the wildfire, so towards wildfire relief. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone for being on this conference today, and we'll now stand for questions.
Thank you, Dwayne. We'll now open the floor to media questions. To ask a question, you may raise your hand using the hand button on the online dashboard. Our first question comes from Mark Jaffe. Mark, your line should be unmuted.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So just to be clear, aside from the development of the RTO, are there any other steps that you're announcing in addition to the closing of the coal plants?
So what we're announcing today is a higher goal than what we announced last January. And as the governor mentioned, it means fewer imports of fossil fuel energy into the state of Colorado. It means the build out of even more renewables than what we had announced in January in order to meet those goals.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up, the Southwest Power Pool, the majority of the generation in that RTO is coal-fired. So how does that square with the goals that you have for Colorado?
Well, one of the great attributes of the Southwest Power Pool is its reach across 14 or 15 states. I'm sorry, I don't have that exactly at hand. And so by doing that, they've been able to integrate more renewables in a bigger way than what's been previously thought possible. Southwest Power Pool is blessed with abundant wind energy resource, and that's been growing by leaps and bounds. They have actually achieved over 80% penetration of renewables during certain hours of the year. As the grid manager over across all those states, that just wouldn't be possible for any single utility or even group of utilities to do. But by grouping all that together and managing the grid as one, there are hours when they can get 80% renewable service, and that's where we're trying to go in the West. And we're going to need that same kind of coordination as we build additional wind and solar to integrate it across a broader region. So that's why we see Southwest Power Pool has an expertise there. In addition, because there's so much abundant wind energy east of Colorado, and Colorado itself is blessed with good energy in the east, but that energy needs to move west. There's a better market for it west if we can get it across that border between the eastern and western grids. And then if you look at where Colorado and New Mexico sit in terms of Tri-State's footprint, very abundant solar resource that could move east and be a benefit. So Southwest Power Pool is uniquely positioned to manage that grid interface between the eastern and western grid to help them achieve their clean energy goals as well.
But the majority of their electrons are coal-fired. So how do you
Well, let me be clear. A grid, being part of a multi-state grid, allows for the export of Colorado green energy when we have a surplus. It's all ways. So we hope that we can position Colorado as a great, reliable source of renewable energy, where and when. But the bigger the market is that we are part of, and this is not particular to Tri-State, this applies to all of our utilities, the more robust that marketplace is. The more rapid the ability is to move to renewable energy, the more rapid the ability to move to load balancing is, the better the operational savings are for consumers, and the more reliable it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I might just add also that Tri-State's not planning to utilize coal energy out of the Southwest Power Pool to meet its obligations in Colorado. And we won't be able to under these very aggressive goals we've set. We actually have to reduce the import of fossil fuel energy into Colorado in order to meet those goals.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, gentlemen, our next question is from Alan Best. Alan, your line is unmuted.
Not hearing you, Alan.
Alan?
Then SPP.
There. Now we're hearing you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Now I hear
Alan,
you.
we can hear you now.
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead. What's your question?
How do you respond to the recent Vibrant Clean Energy study that finds that CAISO produces greater benefits for Colorado than SPP?
Oh, that's a great question, and thank you, Alan, for that. So Vibrant Clean Energy recently produced a study showing, studying the benefits of the SPP's sub-hourly market, we call the WEIS, W-E-I-S, and CalISO's sub-hourly market called the WEIM, W-E-I-M. They're both sub-hourly markets which take the assets that are currently generating and connected to the grid and tries to optimize those within the hour. Not as good as a full-blown market and day-ahead market where you can actually decommit resources and save more money, but it's a good first step and it helps move us in the direction towards regional coordination. So in the study that Vibrant Clean Energy done, I think the headline should be, any market saves billions. And so if you look at the specifics of the study, it compared just looking at a joint dispatch arrangement within the state of Colorado to either a market that moves west with CalISO or one that moves east with SPP. And in both of those, either one of those was well over $1 billion in benefits. And the difference between those two, there was a greater benefit identified with the Western market. Now, the way I interpret those results is, as they modeled that, the Western market had more participants than the Eastern. So really what he concluded was, the more participants you have in a market, the greater the benefits to everyone. We're hopeful that as we move into the SPP EIS, we'll be able to expand that footprint. In fact, it's already expanding larger than what was in that study. And so if more people join us, it's going to be a greater benefit. And we're not closing any doors though behind us here. We're keeping all our options open. If this proves not to be the way to go, and CalISO is more successful and has more participation, we can pivot that direction and participate in that market.
A follow-up question, please, and that has to do with the Eastern interconnection grid and the Western. Will additional work be needed to make this work with SPP?
I'm sorry, to integrate the Eastern and Western grids?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Lots of study and lots of work to expand the current regional ties.
One additional question, if I may. Your preferred alternative for the ESP, do you foresee continuing to use power from Laramie River Station for Colorado?
Yeah, so currently Colorado doesn't make all the energy it consumes and does rely on some imported energy to meet its reliability needs. And we see that continuing going forward, but we're greatly curtailing the amount of energy that comes in across state lines under this plan that we're going to be filing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you, Alan. Our next question comes from Judy Kohler with the Denver Post. Judy, your line is unmuted.
Okay, thank you. A question I have is, how do you get to the more ambitious goal of 80% reduction by 2030? What are some of the specifics?
Compared to our plan that was announced in January, we've added more wind and solar, also some battery storage, and that's helping us get those additional benefits.
And can you talk about how many more megawatts then of renewable energy?
I could if I remember, Judy, sorry. It will be in our plan that we submit December 1st to the PUC, all the specifics.
And you can probably, after the call, Dwayne, can you get sort of the top level estimates to Judy when you look them up? Yeah, we just don't have them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got some staff members listening, so I'm sure they picked up on that.
Great.
Okay, and I kind of want to follow up on Alan's question, and I understand what you're saying about, excuse me, curtailing the import of fossil fuels into Colorado, but isn't it just as important when looking at climate change, looking at the overall production of emissions? You still have the coal unit in Wyoming, you have the coal units in Arizona. Are you looking at retiring those anytime soon?
So we don't own or operate the units that are outside of Colorado and Wyoming. We're a participant and a minority owner of those, so we won't have the ultimate decision on retirement of those assets. The way that we're able to get to the 80% over the 70% goal we were announcing previously is by building additional renewables and storage so that that can squeeze out the energy that would otherwise be supplied into Colorado from coal. So it reduces the amount of coal energy that's flowing across state lines. I'm not sure I'm fully answering your question though, Judy. Can you help me?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering what Tri-State's overall commitment is to, since you're operating in 4 states, overall commitment to reducing reliance on coal and reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, and I think we have that number. We can provide that to you. It's still a very, very significant reduction across our entire footprint of in terms of renewable supply and in terms of carbon reductions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that would be great to have. Thanks.
I wish I had that on top of my head, but it's a big number. It's not quite as big as the Colorado number, but it's still a very big number. And I'm wanting to say, well, I shouldn't say. I'll let somebody provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
I just found a note here that SPP is currently forecasting, and this goes back to the previous question, that their wind will overtake coal as the primary fuel source in the region during the year 2020. So that's something they're anticipating.
Gentlemen, our next question comes from Sam Brash with Colorado Public Radio. Sam, your line is unmuted.
Sam, we can't hear you, Sam. Are you with us, Sam?
Sam, calling Sam.
We'll mute Sam again and we'll go to the next question. Our next question is from Brian Almer with the Barn Radio Network. Brian, your line is unmuted.
Gentlemen, I have 2 questions. Whoever wants to take this first one, I guess it'd be Dwayne. How much energy does Tri-State generate from hydropower?
Okay, that's a memory test for me. I'm going to say it's in the neighborhood of 10% in terms of our total portfolio.
And the second question would be, why in the world in Colorado does hydropower not count toward this goal that's been set in front of you?
Well, in terms of carbon reduction, it actually does help us.
Yeah.
So because the goal is measured in terms of tons of carbon, and hydro is a wonderful non-emitting resource, it does help us meet that goal.
And we
In
are
some
excited
states.
about certainly more hydropower. It's part of that 80%. Obviously, the hydropower does not emit carbon, so it's absolutely included in that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And gentlemen, there are no more questions in our queue. If you do have a question, please
I would
raise
just
your
say
hand.
that, and we can go back to Sam to see if he can get it working at CPR. But when we talk about renewable energy, that can be, not that we have it as part of it, but it could be geothermal electric, it could be hydro, solar, wind. Really any form that is non-carbon emitting would be included in that 80%. Also, when we talk about 100% 2040, we talk about all of those as part of it.
Looking forward to the next 10 years. It's going to be an exciting time in the energy business.
Really exciting time. Benefits for consumers, cleaner air, doing our part on climate, and creating the good green jobs of the future right here in Colorado. We are just so excited on behalf of the state of Colorado for Tri-State's announcement today. Look forward to continuing to work with you, your member co-ops, to really do our part for climate resiliency and to save people money on their electric bills. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Governor, for your continued support on our progress. Thanks. Well, that'll end our conference. Thank you all.
And thank you all for participating today. If you have further questions, you can reach out to Mark Stutz at 303-501-3526 or to me, Lee Bowie, at 720-670-6696. We look forward to working with you, and thank you for joining us today. This concludes our conference.